Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda, and this is the third in the trifecta I have for you on this Friday morning here on the 6th day of January 2017. I have 4 articles in this uh, issue this morning, and all these URLs, of course, are in the description of the video, so you can pull them up and do your research and check out the videos and things in them. The first article I have is off of BizPack Review, and it says, Nigel Farage blasts Angela Merkel. Remember who invited these people in without a single security check. Former UKIP leader Nigel Farage slammed German Chancellor Angela Merkel for inviting Islamic terrorism into her own country. Responding to Merkel's New Year's message, stating that Islam terrorism poses the greatest challenge to Germany, Farage noted that it is about time the Chancellor made the admission. And there is a video tweet here, and it says Angela Merkel says Islamic terror is the biggest threat facing Germany. At Nigel Farage says Merkel brought this on herself. And the article continues and says, at last, what we are seeing from Ms. Merkel is some recognition. It's not racist, it's not inflammatory, it's not wrong to recognize that we have a problem, the leader of the UK Independence Party told Fox Business Network Stuart Varney. However, let's just remember, she was the person who invited into Germany over 1 million people without being able to security check a single one of them, he added. And then there's another tweet from David Jones that says Farage blasts Merkel for letting Islamic terrorism into Germany. And the article continues and says, as Merkel runs for 4th term as Chancellor, she's facing harsh criticism for allowing over 1 million refugees into the country without proper vetting for all of them. Farage blamed Merkel and the failed freedom of movement in Europe for the massacre in Berlin before Christmas when a Tunisian refugee drove a truck into a crowded Christmas market, allegedly killing 12 people and injuring many more. The person driving that lorry had served a prison sentence in Italy, though the European Union's free movement, he got into Germany, Farage says. He had applied for asylum and refugee status, and having been refused, he hadn't been removed. And then, when he was the most wanted man in the whole Europe, he was able to cross the border into France and into Italy, where he was finally caught in Milan. Anis Marie was shot and killed by Italian police in Milan following a manhunt for the suspect. As a result, Italy declared it would be looking to deport the hundreds of migrants who have flooded into the country. I think the people right across Europe are furious that the Schengen free movement area doesn't just mean the free movement of good people. Farage, an advocate for tighter European border controls, said it means the free movement of bad people, Kalashnikovs, explosives, and everything else. The next article I have for you is off of Brigaded.com, and it says Jill Stein walks away with $2 million after failed recount scheme. And really, there's not much of an article here to it. There is a statement. It says from Victor Smith. It says, "I'm Victor, co-founder of Brigaded. I'll be uncovering the truth behind the corrupt and greedy political system we've been dealt." And there are some comments underneath this. If you'd like to pull those up and take a look at them. Well, one of them states it very clearly. It says, where's the article? All I see is a headline. Jill Stein walks away with $2 million after failed recount scheme. Are you still trying to uncover the truth, or is the headline supposed to be sufficient? So it'll be interesting to see if they come up with a little bit more to that. But yeah, that's what it says here. The next one I have for you is off of CNN Politics. It says, effort to defund Planned Parenthood threatens Obamacare repeal. And there is video in this, and this one actually does have an article. And it says, Washington, CNN, a push by Republican congressional leaders to defund Planned Parenthood could threaten passage of their top priority legislation to repeal Obamacare because of opposition to the anti-abortion provision by two key GOP senators. House Speaker Paul Ryan announced Thursday that Republicans will move to strip all federal funding for Planned Parenthood as part of the process they are using early this year to dismantle Obamacare. Congressional Republicans have tried for years to zero out all the federal funding for Planned Parenthood because the group provides abortion services. The fight over Obamacare helped trigger a 16-day government shutdown in 2013, and Democrats and President Barack Obama insisted any Planned Parenthood provision targeting the group be removed from a bill to fund federal agencies. The decision to add the controversial Planned Parenthood language, which is opposed by most Democrats, could have a major impact on getting the Affordable Care Act repeal legislation through the Senate because supporters need the backing of at least 50 of their 52 members, and pro-choice senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska won't commit to approving the bill with a Planned Parenthood provision in it. Further complicating matters for Senate GOP leaders is Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, who announced this week he plans to vote against the Obamacare repeal legislation because the underlying budget measure it is attached to doesn't balance and adds to the deficit. If Murkowski, Collins, and Paul all voted against the budget bill, it would be enough to torpedo the Obamacare repeal legislation. I'm going to wait and see what happens, Collins told reporters, indicating she thinks it's too early to decide how she'll vote on the bill. Obviously, I'm not happy to hear the speaker wants to include defunding of Planned Parenthood, an extremely controversial issue in the package. Murkowski told reporters Tuesday she was still weighing the issue. In 2015, she joined Collins in voting for an amendment to strip Planned Parenthood funding out of a budget bill that would have also repealed much of Obamacare. Ultimately backed the repeal measure, even though it had the anti-Planned Parenthood provision, which Obama ultimately vetoed. At this point in time, I have been involved in a sit down with colleagues about specifics of reconciliation. So it's tough for me to speculate or engage in any conjecture, Murkowski said earlier this week. We're going to have to be having a lot of discussions about that probably as soon as this week. On Thursday, Murkowski spokesman Karina Peterson said the senator is concerned about defunding Planned Parenthood as she is about longtime support of Planned Parenthood, broadly defunding the organization. Republicans could drop the Planned Parenthood measure, but doing so could spark anger from the right flank of their party and potentially make it harder to defund the organization at a later date. Senator Majority Whip John Corwin, the number 2 Republican in his chamber, said that certainly where I am, when asked if he wanted to include defunding of the organization into the repeal measure, but he noted that's a place we'll start, and that nothing has finally been decided yet. While we would like to have 52 senators, if we have a vice president in the chair, that gives us a little bit of flexibility on reconciliation, Corwin said Thursday, referencing the ability of the vice president to break Senate ties. The vast majority of federal money that Planned Parenthood does receive funds preventative health care, birth control, pregnancy tests, and other women's health care services. Democrats also point out that much of the money the group received is through the Medicaid program, which reimburses health care clinics that provide care to those covered by the federal legislation. And hold on just a second here while I mute this and silence my co-host over here. Okay, I think he's going to be quiet now for a little bit. We'll hope so. Uh, he outtalks me. Under the long-standing Hyde Amendment that is attached to annual funding bills, no federal money is allowed to go to programs that include abortion services unless they are needed to preserve the life of the mother or are caused by rape. Democrats immediately denounced the news that Republicans again were working to bar future federal funds for Planned Parenthood. This is a priority for the Republicans, said House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi Thursday afternoon. So I just would like to speak individually to women across America. This is about respect for you, for your judgment about your personal decisions in terms of your reproductive needs, the size and timing of your family, or the rest, not to be determined by insurance company or by Republican ideology right-wing caucus in the House of Representatives. So this is a very important occasion where we're pointing out very specifically what repeal of the Affordable Care Act will mean to women. Cecile Richards, president of Planned Parenthood Action Fund, told CNN's Aaron Burnett on Outfront Thursday that concerned women have lobbied against the move throughout the day. His phone has been jammed up today, Richards said. Anti-abortion rights groups point to a letter that the Trump campaign signed in September pledging support for defunding Planned Parenthood as long as they continue to perform abortions and reallocating their funding to community health centers that provide comprehensive health care for women. Vulnerable pro-abortion Democratic senators need to do a serious gut check, especially following the 2016 election outcome, and decide if they will stand with their constituents and women's health care or continue to funnel money to big abortion, warned Marjorie Danfleser, president of Susan B. Anthony List, an anti-abortion group, in a written statement. And the final article that I have for you in this episode is off of space.com, and it says, surprise of radio waves arose in a tiny galaxy. And there is video in this if you'd like to take a look at that. It says, for the first time, scientists have directly traced an incredibly intense, blindingly bright burst of radio waves known as FRB back to its home galaxy. Surprisingly, this impressive cosmic radio flasher has somewhat humble origins, according to 3 new studies detailing the findings. FRB stands for Fast Radio Burst. These flickers of light were just discovered in 2007, and although they last for just a fraction of a second, they release more energy than our entire sun will radiate in 10,000 years. FRBs have been detected, but scientists estimate that one of these bursts occurs somewhere in the sky about every 10 seconds. What cosmic event could release such an intense burst of radio waves? That's still a mystery. But narrowing down the precise location of one of these radio blasts is a big step toward tracking the case. The new study shows that the burst known as FRB 121102 originated about 3 billion light years away from Earth, from inside a dwarf galaxy, a collection of stars much smaller than large galaxies like the Milky Way. The fact that FRB 121102 originated from a dwarf galaxy was a bit unexpected. The Cees Bassa, an astronomer at the Netherlands Institute for Radio Astronomy, Astron, and a co-author of one of the 3 new studies. We were not sure what to expect, but I think the whole team was surprised to see that our exotic source is hosted by a very puny and faint galaxy, Bassa said in a statement from the Max Planck Institute for Radio Astronomy in Bonn, Germany, where some of the co-authors are based. The surprising finding could provide clues about the source of these radio bursts. One would generally expect most FRBs come from large galaxies which have the largest numbers of stars and neutron stars, study co-author Shai Harsh Tendukar said in a statement from McGill University in Montreal, where he is postdoctoral researcher. This dwarf galaxy has fewer stars but is forming stars at a high rate, which may suggest that FRBs are linked to young neutron stars. Neutron stars are dense objects that form when a star explodes and its remaining material collapses on itself. Because FRBs appear and then disappear in the night sky very quickly, they are incredibly difficult to detect and study. A telescope must already be looking at the region of the sky where the flash appears in order to see it, and there's no time to alert other telescopes and have them turn their eyes toward the source. That's difficult to refine the location and distance of these flashes. A study released earlier this year claimed to have traced an FRB back to its source galaxy, but doubt was later thrown on that finding. In addition, that study used an indirect method to trace the FRB's origin, whereas the studies of FRB 121102 trace its location directly. But FRB 121102 is unique because it's a repeater. This radio burst was first discovered in November of 2012 by astronomers using the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico and was seen by that telescope again in 2014. It was caught flashing 9 times during a dedicated study using the Very Large Array, or VLA, in New Mexico. Additional observations of the burst were also taken with telescopes belonging to the European VLBI network, including the 100-meter or 330 feet Effelsberg radio telescope in Germany. Those observations helped researchers narrow down the source of the radio flasher. With the 8-meter 26 feet Gemini North telescope in Hawaii, the researchers then showed that the FRB was coming from a dwarf galaxy located about 3 billion light years away. Before we knew the distance to any FRBs, several proposed explanations for their origin said they could be coming from within or near our own Milky Way galaxy. Tendulkar said in a statement from the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. We now have ruled out those explanations, at least for this FRB. Of FRB 121102 could also offer clues to its origin. If the flashes are caused by a neutron star, they might be expected to occur regularly. Stars that radiate beams of light are known as pulsars, and they appear to flicker on and off because of a lighthouse effect. The beams sweep across the Earth as pulsars spins, moving in and out of view without regular frequency. Astronomers are now studying FRB 121102 with radio, optical, X-ray, and gamma-ray telescopes to search for clues. Tendulkar said 2 other classes of extreme events are also known to occur frequently in dwarf galaxies: long-duration gamma-ray bursts, or very bright flashes of high-energy light, and superluminous supernovas, or very bright exploding stars. This discovery may hint and links between FRBs and those 2 kinds of events, Tendulkar said. But some of the authors also cautioned that the repeating nature of FRB 121102 could indicate that it is somehow physically different than other known FRBs. FRB 121102 is not alone. The researchers also found a persistent source of radio waves in the same area of the sky, and the evidence suggests that both sources of radio waves are connected somehow. They either arose from the same source or are linked in some other way, the researchers said. The results of these studies will appear in these separate papers on January the 5th, one of the journal Nature, and 2 in the Astrophysical Journal Letters. So there you have the 4 articles in this final episode, 3rd episode today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like what we're doing, give it a thumbs up. Share it around on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And don't forget to subscribe. Click that little bell in the subscription box there and check the box so that you get the email alerts every time I put a show up. And that way you'll stay aware of the news. And if I find anything over the weekend that warrants a show, I'll bring it right to you. Have a great weekend.